Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us again this evening. We will begin our open session with approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or deletions? Any disclosure of interest this evening? We have no delegations. So resolution number 144-20, moved by Councillor Mullen, seconded by Councillor Morrow, that the minutes of the Council and Committee of the Whole meeting held May 12th, 2020 be accepted as circulated. All those in favor? Resolution number 145-20, moved by Councillor Morrow, seconded by Councillor McGrath, that Council approve the expenditure request and approval to proceed from the Ontario Clean Water Agency to hire Automation Now for site inspection to scope for the flow meter job in the amount of $4,870.34, excluding HST. All in favor? Resolution number 146-20, moved by Councillor Morrow, seconded by Councillor Mullins, that Council approve the expenditure request and approval to proceed from the Ontario Clean Water Agency for the installation and maintenance of a new turbidity meter at the water treatment plant in the amount of $9,419.41, excluding HST. All those in favor? Resolution number 147-20, moved by Councillor McGrath, seconded by Councillor Morrow, that checks issued on the general bank account in the month of April 2020 in the amount of $219,219.52 for general accounts payable be approved and ratified. All those in favor? Resolution number 148-20, moved by Councillor Mullen, seconded by Councillor Morrow, that bank debits issued on the general bank account in the month of April 2020 in the amount of $48,061.48 for payroll be approved and ratified. All those in favor? Thank you. Resolution number 149-20, moved by Councillor Morrow, seconded by Councillor McGrath, that Bylaw 20-20, being a bylaw to authorize the sale of lands within PCL 16579, Section TBF SRO, PT location 196 E Prisk, PT 2-4, 55R1884, S/T LPA 88393, Schreiber, being PIN 62458-0068 LT, to Ontario One Network, to Hydro One Network Incorporated, to be given first, second, third, and final reading and enacted. All those in favor? Thank you. Resolution number 150-20, moved by Councillor Mullins, seconded by Councillor Morrow, that bylaw 21-2020 being a bylaw to authorize the Township of Schreiber to enter in an agreement with Trans-Canada Trail A6 access to picnic table lookout upgrade phase 1, project number 103547, be given first, second, third, and final reading and enacted. All in favor? That brings us to a close, our council portion of the meeting, so we'll go into committee of the whole with department reports. Director of Operations report. Any questions on that? Bylaw enforcement report. Do we have any questions?
For the Director of Operations, though, was that recommendation okay? That recommendation is to purchase a new transmission shift controller with a sum of $3,400 plus HST.
Yep.
Everybody fine with that?
Yeah.
Okay. The Schreiber land maintenance final draft.
So this is still a the land maintenance bylaw. This is still the well, not exactly the final draft. I know that was probably one of the titles and the attachments, but we're still working on it. And Karen, if you want to come up for any questions. So what we have right now is, again, just an update from the old, looking at this 1999 bylaw. And at this stage, again, it's just a draft, and the set fines and all of that will still have to be developed. We're looking for any comments or suggestions or questions at this point.
I had a question on number 7. And that was the authority to enter private property and clean up private property.
Yes.
So
What was your question?
if somebody had a bunch of derelict vehicles on their property, you could go in and haul them all away
We can remove them
and charge it to
to the property tax.
the property owner, and
Yeah.
they could either pay the bill or,
If they're not compliant, if they don't do them by the date that we give them, we can go in and remove it, and we charge it back to the property owner.
you send them a bill, or
And you could tack on their taxes.
Tack it onto their taxes.
or onto their
Yeah.
tax, one way or the other.
Yeah.
Okay, when we were talking about in the wintertime, doing this bylaw and that outfit, bringing it up to date and all that,
Yes, sir.
where it says here, just the overview on that,
Oh, okay.
just the overview of it, it says the provisions that spoke to the snow and ice being dumped on public land, was moved to a different
Yes, it's
bylaw.
being moved to the traffic and parking enforcement.
Okay, I think we're of the belief then, or at least I was, that we were gonna attach fines to that too, so it could have some teeth.
That's what we're looking at, yep.
So it's just not going to be moved to that bylaw, it's gonna,
It's got enough teeth.
by this winter coming up,
Fingers crossed.
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Okay. So, what is a vacant land? What's vacant land? Like, okay.
Okay,
What my problem is, and you can tell me, is I don't wanna see anything, any cement piles or any debris or none, zero, zilch, derelict cars on vacant land. On an empty lot, I do not want to see any, so has this bylaw got the teeth to do that?
We are actually adding that as we've talked to MCS Consulting, and we've decided that we'd like to have that added very clearly, that a vacant lot is a lot that does not have access with its principal use. So if it's vacant, we want it vacant. So nothing will be stored, and we're getting that, will be in the next draft. We're getting our consultant to add that in, to make sure that everybody's clear. Vacant means vacant. There's no buildings, there's no sheds, there's no tires, there's no anything like that on it.
Is
Yeah.
there a difference between a residential vacant lot, and I think we were talking a little bit about that, and a commercial vacant lot?
Yeah, well, right now we're working on the residential lots,
Yeah.
simply because that's the one that right now is more of a situation.
Certainly, the zoning bylaw makes it very clear for, residential lots, again, what's considered vacant. And like Karen was saying, it's exactly that. It's the permitted use, the primary use, which is, again, a home. And the garage, sheds, everything like that are secondary to that home. And so very much in that case, to, clarify, it's, if it's just a garage on a lot, that is still considered a vacant lot. And there should be, all the storage and everything should be inside that garage or inside that shed.
Right, and that's, that's gotta be clear, because
Yep.
I noticed in one part of the bylaw, it says you can have 2 vehicles or whatever in the garage, as long as they're in the garage.
Mhm.
Or you can have 2 vehicles with a tarp over them.
Yep. Now,
Right.
those 2 vehicles, for instance, if you're gonna be parking any vehicle on a vacant lot, it has to be parked inside the garage. Can't be outside anywhere. Essentially, the only way that people can, park their vehicles outside of that garage is if they have a house built on the property.
And then they can only
then-
have 2,
Yes.
and they have to be covered. If there's no garage, they have to be covered with decent tarpaulins.
Yep. If they're not in operating condition, they should be covered.
I think, Counselor, that's addressed in section 7 of the new one, inoperative motor vehicle storage. So we don't want any vehicles on vacant lots at all.
That
Yeah,
is
and the
great.
2 part is, section 7.1B, the vehicle and parts are fully and completely covered with a canvas or similar opaque, weather-resistant tarpaulin in good repair, so it can't just be something. In which case, no more than 2 such covered vehicles will be permitted in any yard.
And these are cars, not like a trailer or something like that, correct?
Well, it depends on the definition of vehicle, and I believe we have that addressed. Motor vehicle includes automobile, motorcycle, snowmobile, and any other vehicle propelled or driven otherwise than by muscular power. So it would not include a trailer.
So you can't.
But it still can't be stored on a vacant lot.
Yeah, you can't store it.
You
Okay.
still can't store it on a vacant lot.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because the analysis of it nails it. It's like it reflects the nature of the municipality.
Yes.
It aligns with the enabling provincial legislation, and it's got to be easily understood by the general public, and it's effective and efficient in terms of its administration and enforceability.
So we wanted to
And
be very clear.
very clear and a lot of teeth in it and good.
And of course, we're looking for compliance.
Well, definitely.
We're looking for compliance.
And to clarify that part for the vehicles, it's saying again, 2 non-operative vehicles.
Correct.
Because, people are wondering.
Yeah, correct.
Limited
Yeah,
to
for
being-
sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do we have very many vacant commercial lots?
We do have vacant, what do you say,
Is it commercial or business?
essentially, it works a different way with regards to the commercial zoning, because with commercial zoning, a permitted use would include the storage of, for instance, lumber or building supplies, or the primary use will include parking. So essentially, it's far more, what do you say, tolerant to the concept of vacant. This is a concept that's being applied mostly to residential properties, because the moment you try to put it onto commercial, it becomes very difficult, because of course they're storing merchandise outside.
Okay. So I guess the question I have is then, to get around the use of residential vacant lots, then how easy would it be to have a residential vacant lot rezoned to commercial?
That in itself would be, that's a real planning question, right? So ultimately, it's very much on a case-by-case basis, depending on the location of where the property is. If it's adjacent to other vacant, other commercial property, or along the highway, for instance, such as that, it warrants it to be easier to change that designation. But that being said, again, any sort of change in land use or zoning designation goes through a whole process, and if someone wants to change that in an area where all the neighbors are
Yeah.
residential, it's going to be really a battle
get their
that may be
approval.
faced.
It's a process and where
Yep.
we do the final
Right.
approval.
Yep. But again, people can apply for changes in zoning, but ultimately, will that be, accepted? It would have to first go through us,
Yeah.
we'd have to do a study to see whether it's
Yeah.
appropriate, and then ultimately the neighbors, can very much intervene.
So it could happen if it makes sense.
Yeah,
If it makes
for
sense.
sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions for Karen? Thank you very much, Karen.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Carol.
folks.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Appreciate your time.
Works good.
Yeah, good
Thank
work.
you.
Next up is the Discovery Center schedule.
So just an update here. Fenway's completing the final stages of work, including the metal roofing, interior building finishes, and just some of the exterior rail ties and accessories, placing that together. And they plan to start the landscaping next month. Substantial completion is actually now planned for June 26th, 2020. So we're almost there.
It's looking good.
Mhm.
Yeah, that metal roof is.
Getting really sharp, that black metal roof.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Bakery.
Any other questions on that?
That's moving quick.
Mhm.
Yeah.
26, another month.
Cool, yeah. Ooh, happy birthday.
I'll have to double check the budget to see if we have any money for the exterior upgrades for that storage car, and put that on, kind of put it on hold for a bit. That being said, if there's any cash allowances in the project that haven't been spent yet, we may be able to get it done at an appropriate price. So I'll double check that.
And I was talking to Red and Nathan last week about, sorry, Doug?
I had a question for Nathan.
Oh, kind of
He's
gone a
only
bit
coming out of
softer,
here.
eh?
He's coming out.
You're talking about June the 26th,
June
Yes.
the 26th, yes?
like, isn't Dominic just sent us copies of, there's 4 companies that are tendering or bidding for the interior work in the Discovery Center, so, I'm surprised you think they're gonna accomplish that. They haven't even told you who's gonna do that job yet.
Oh, that is a separate contract. This contract, we're referring to the construction. So the tender that you're looking at, that is for the exhibit design.
Right.
Yep. So
Yeah.
it'll take a whole year to do that.
That, like, the Discovery Center, I know exactly.
But it fixes.
They're likely not going to be open until next year. Okay.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I don't know what's with the audio, Doug, but coming in a bit quiet there.
Can't help you there.
I was gonna say, I spoke to Red and Nathan last week about the culverts that are up there,
Mhm.
and they're looking at putting some kind of rock around to just kind of finish it off,
Mhm.
Right now, it's just sand, right, and the 2 great big
Yeah.
culverts. So we're looking at, and probably something that our guys can do, we'll look around and see what's available, just to make it look a little more finished.
Sounds good.
Okay, so anything else on that? And we can move to the downtown revitalization drawings.
So again, this was just an update on the design for the pavilion. Again, they're doing a lot of engineering work, so they give an update with regards to the mechanical plans and electrical plans. As we continue through this process, something to keep in mind is it's further we go along the process, it's going to become more expensive to make any changes. So,
This fireplace,
Yep.
it says it's a gas fireplace.
Propane.
Is this like a necessary expense?
It's actually going to be heating
Is
up
that
the
gonna
building.
heat the whole thing? There's no
Not,
other.
it's not going to be the main, source of heating for the building. It will have an actual furnace, but
Okay.
this is going to be for that portion of the accommodation area. It will contribute to the heating there.
Okay, it's not just an aesthetic thing.
It did start off as an aesthetic thing.
Okay.
It certainly did. That I'm not.
I just want to get the most,
Yeah.
because I'm assuming that's not going to be cheap. That whole fireplace and that.
Possibly. I mean, ultimately, the building has, we're aiming for a budget of around 500 to 600 grand for this building. So we're trying to attempt of getting a lot of practicalities with this building. Putting in right now how it's planned is we're trying to plan it for really the best return on investment. So, I mean, as you see this whole path of how this kind of started, we were looking at seasonal. At that point, we were looking now at having it possible to be insulated through winter, and that's again part of where the engineering was coming in. At the same time, we want to be able to have that, mix of open and exterior space. So I know that that's something that is something to look at again, but ultimately it's what the engineers have suggested here is something for practicality. And I know that an area of contention for this could be like, does it really bring a big bang for how it looks and all? But that's going to be, again, something to consider. Ultimately, everything comes with a price, is what I'm saying. And you look at the museum, right? That was a very expensive roof to get that kind of design. if you want something that's very catchy, we can do that, but you know, that's putting more money into
We might end
one
up
area
with
of the
just a
project
roof.
than the other.
Yeah.
So ultimately, what you see with the designs and all, one thing I do need to, you know, make sure is that at this stage, you know, criticize it and put your points, but make sure that you're happy with it, because it's gonna, again, be more expensive to make any changes down the road. Because that's more plans, everything else that we would have to change to accommodate anything different.
And this is basically kind of like a starting point. We don't know what this is gonna cost right now.
No, we don't, we honestly
hasn't
don't
been
know
put
till
out.
it's being tendered.
Just,
When will that happen, the
I guess
RFP?
I'm just confused.
We're aiming to get the RFP tendered around July, and if, you know, if this year doesn't work out for the actual tender, we may put it for tender again in June, in Jan of next year, so it can be done in the next construction season.
So we have no idea what it's gonna cost until we do that.
No, even from the cost estimates that we did with the Discovery Center, what we found was when we actually had it tendered, the cost estimates didn't match that tender price. So, as a general rule, from what my discussion with the Construction Association in Thunder Bay is, to say you're gonna be paying about 30% extra in Schreiber. And it's true, right? We're gonna be likely looking again at bigger construction companies from Thunder Bay to do something like this, so.
You had a question, Dave, or concern?
Yeah, I guess I'm just a little confused as to what would you use this for in the winter?
Yep.
If we got a rec center that serves the same
Mhm.
purpose.
Mhm. And that's,
Because this is all, like, yeah, the pavilion's a little new to me, right?
and that's an important consideration to keep in mind. It's, ultimately, when we started with the plan to go with engineering, it came down to the point of ultimately looking at, again, the best value for that building. And if that building does become a very, what do you say, popular destination and gathering space, we didn't want to be caught off guard with spending a lot more money down the road to reconfigure the building with insulation and everything else in order to make it usable 360.
So, this is part of the downtown revitalization, so obviously what's not happening in terms of the outdoor space, because money is being allocated to this, right? Am I correct? This wasn't part of the original downtown plan. It was not a building, it was more like a,
It was a pavilion, but it was
it was,
open.
yeah, it was an open thing, right? So what's being sacrificed in the outdoor?
What's being changed here?
Yeah.
I mean, the real change here was, instead of going with the glass garage doors, they were suggesting to go with more like patio doors.
Okay, so like the
So-
splash pad in the park, that's.
Oh, yeah,
still
the
a
splash
thing?
pad park and
Okay,
every,
okay.
this is just one component of the
No,
entire project.
I get that, I just see lots of dollar signs when I look at this.
I personally don't think this is gonna come in, this is gonna blow our socks off, this thing.
Mhm.
I mean,
I
as a
think-
parent, sorry.
We got, I think we'll end up going back to, and I shouldn't say it, but I think we'll end up going back to square one where, like, it's always had walls on it, but like Nathan said, garage doors and then, we've always wanted that. I've seen a concept where it's gonna be open wall, like no walls at all, just the roof. Well, that's totally wrong too, because we've always said a mural is gonna be in there, so a mural can't hang on air. But I mean, this is the concept that we gotta go with, and we'll put it out and see what they come back with a price and.
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile to look into,
Yeah.
because if you're looking to the future, then you wanna have a building that's gonna survive the 4 seasons.
Yeah, I agree, I just don't want to not have a swing set because we have a fancy fireplace in this
Yeah,
place.
I agree.
Yeah.
100%. And you know, should we get that stage when we tender it and, you know, it comes back, you know, for instance, very much with the Discovery Center, it was a $1 million gap, right? And I don't think that would be the case here. We did have a bit of a, would you say, a pre-tender where we did put it out for tender, and then they came back and they said, you know, we need engineering
Yeah.
drawings and all to give you a proper price, right? So,
Yeah.
prior to that, they did come in around with numbers close to the budget, but, we'll ultimately see what ends
Yeah.
up there. There is a lot of site work again that is being done where, a lot of like, landscaping work and all, for instance, that could be seen as a bit of frills, but, we were at that same stage with the Discovery Center, and we put forward again suggestions on what to cut without getting, you know, rid of the main elements that, everyone would like. And ultimately, we want to do something that's cost effective, but at the same time look at, you know, what the intent is for this project, and that's ultimately the main goal is to get people onto Scotia Street. And, you know, if we have an opportunity to spend a little bit of money to ensure that people can be on Scotia Street, you know, 360, that would be a wonderful outcome. But
Yeah,
at the
definitely.
same time, it's a lot of different aspects to balance. So
Yeah.
certainly we'll be, you know, paying close attention to this and looking at how we can make this design, you know, better with regards to suggestions to get back to the engineers with.
Another option for activity in our community.
Right.
Yeah,
No,
I
that's
like it.
Thanks for
Okay,
clarifying
everybody
that.
fine with that
Yeah.
then?
Yeah.
We can move on to the Senior Program Coordinator report for April. Any questions on that? You've still been pretty busy.
Yeah,
Doing a great job.
they're not sitting down, they're still
Yeah.
going gung ho, 187 members too. So,
No, they're doing a good job, that bingo
Yeah.
went over well,
yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
doing a good job.
Some of the stuff they're doing is really catching on too, so.
Yeah,
Well, that'll lead us into the next one then, their fund letter for request for the COVID-19 survival kits.
Yeah.
They originally had talked about a community garden,
Yeah.
but they didn't get the funding, so they're going after these kits, survival kits for COVID-19, and hopefully that will come through.
Yeah, 220 hampers,
Yes.
Yep.
good stuff.
Very good stuff.
yeah.
Thanks to all who've been helping out with this. Okay, question period.
Question period. Something I can do is live check to see if we did get any questions. Yeah, no questions. If anyone's at home,
Yeah.
send your questions to info@schreiber.ca and put the subject line question period, and it should relate to questions to something on the agenda.
Okay, then we'll move into communications. Are there any communications you'd like to talk about, go through?
Number 7,
Yeah.
that one,
High-speed internet?
high-speed internet. I was listening to a program today on CBC, and there was I mean, this isn't just our problem, it's a problem
All across the province.
All across the province. Like, there was a couple on there, and they're, I think, 5 minutes away from Hamilton, Ontario, you know, out a little bit in the country, and the cable runs 100 yards away from their house,
And they can't get it.
and they can't get it.
Yeah.
To get hooked up, it would cost $27,000 out of their own pockets. You know,
Yeah, there was
Crazy.
Yeah, there was a guy, about a week ago, Dave, out by your house and around that area, like where they have changed the poles already.
Taking pictures
And he was taking pictures and writing stuff down and everything, so, I mean,
Yeah.
making some noise over this.
over the
Uh,
poles. And
Maybe they're gonna finish off stage one.
maybe, that's what I was thinking, because he had a Hydro One truck, I believe, and he was taking pictures specifically of the old poles that are still there beside the new poles. And we had complained to the minister and everything about that, like,
Yeah.
when are you
Yeah.
coming back to finish the job, because it looks terrible. So, yeah, maybe they're looking at doing something now, I'm not sure. We haven't heard anything, but we've seen them around town for sure.
Certainly a tricky situation, right, where you're dealing with private companies to establish the infrastructure, so their bottom line is, again, business, and that's where their response is for us to, right, lobby the government to give them subsidies or
Okay.
grants to make it work.
Am I?
Have a tea by type.
Did I move around?
Maybe.
Mayor's,
Down on your neck.
mayor's falling.
Dan, did you want to support that?
What's their definition of high-speed internet? Is it like,
Yeah, I think that we should,
do we have
I
high-speed
mean, as
internet?
a community, I mean, the more support that, the more support and pressure we put out,
Yeah.
the more noise, I guess, we put out,
Yeah.
then the better.
I think we can probably support the original one, which
Yeah.
was Armour Township.
Yeah,
I think I
correct.
had that,
Correct.
The
yeah,
last
it
meeting.
was-
It was always last, yeah.
yeah.
Armour Township.
And we did have a
Yeah.
delegation and at the last, that was, the conference we had in,
Yep. With Shaw.
Yeah. That was one of the things that we brought there was, high-speed internet, so we just keep it up. Keep complaining about it, maybe something will happen, so.
That'd be nice.
They said the main reason why they don't want to do it is because when someone builds the initial line, the government allows everyone else to piggyback off that
Yeah.
line. So,
Shaw won't even build a line up to, Shaw won't build a line up to Walker's
No.
Lake. Sucks.
There's TELUS in town now, you can get,
For internet though?
well, mobile, like cellular, so I'm
Yeah.
sure you could get internet.
A rocket hook thing?
Yeah, get a rocket up, and I have Bell, which works well for me, and
Mhm.
down at Schreiber Beach,
Yeah.
like.
There's more outfits popping up all over
Yeah,
there.
so that's, I mean, at least
Turn-
there's some options.
Turnkey operations in Thunder Bay would be a good one. So,
Yeah.
Okay, anything else under communications? Then we will go into unfinished business, the draft consulting agreement for Precambrian Natural Surface Trail Incorporated.
took a look at that, and upon review, it was a pretty well-written agreement, pretty straightforward. I didn't really have too much issues with that, so I'll prepare it for draft bylaw. I'll prepare it for bylaw, actually.
So that if they have changes, they put it in writing and it goes to you?
Yep. Yep, if there's any changes and all.
And then if it's a big change, do we have to approve it? Or
Oh,
either way, we have to?
the RFP, really took care of,
Okay.
dealing with regards to what we want and what he was willing to offer, so, and I really saw no really big changes
Okay.
at all, so
And that price that was quoted, that's
it's within the budget. and
the
everything.
budget, and that's it, there's not gonna be anything further than
No
that.
surprises?
Yes.
All the surprises.
Okay, and our next is the summer meeting schedule. Tentative dates for July 21st and August the 11th. Anybody have a problem with those?
Got some pretty big travel plans this.
Yeah.
I have to check my planner.
Think I'm available.
I'm flexible.
Hey, with this online, you can join us
Yeah.
from anywhere.
Yeah, that's right.
Can't go anywhere.
Okay, then if we're fine, like I say, they're just tentative, we can change as time goes on. So then with nothing else, we are resolution number 150-20.
151.
151.
Yeah.
Sorry. Moved by Councillor Morrow, seconded by Councillor Mullins, that the closed meeting resume at this time. All in favor? Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening. Have a good evening.
We're due for a project with no surprises, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,